goodbye. Some people like that hurt. Some just rather say goodbye. Bye. Hold on, wait a minute. Feel my heart's intention. Hold on, wait a minute. I left my consciousness in the sixth dimension.
Buenas noches, buenas tardes, noches, días, en donde nos encontremos alrededor del mundo. Bienvenidos una vez más a esta session del SUG Latam. Session 14, por supuesto que sí. Vamos muy bien en ese aspecto. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están esos ánimos? ¿Cómo estamos todos? Muchas gracias a los que se unen. Hoy tenemos una sesión increíble. Tenemos una sesión más volcada a la parte técnica, por supuesto que sí. Hoy nos van a hablar de Sitecore JSS, de Sitecore Forms. Va a estar súper entretenido, súper interesante. Así que inviten a todos que se unan. Ya nos estamos uniendo. Vamos a esperar solo 2 minutos. Ya tenemos a nuestro invitado aquí. And we're going to have to switch our brains, our languages to English. So yeah, it's awesome to have every one of you here. As always, thanks for being part of this. And today we're going to start with this session number 14. We have today a very, very pro guest. He has been 6 times Sitecore Technology MVP. He's a solutions architect, Sitecore XXA, JSS, and React full stack developer. Let's all welcome Peter Procházka. Hi, Peter.
Thank you all
Hey.
for being here. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here and talk about some great stuff today.
Oh yeah,
it's
for sure.
midnight for me, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm not that fresh.
No, we understand. Thank you very much, Peter, to open up your time and your schedule. Difficult to be at midnight, but we're very thankful for that.
No problem. Always happy to share some knowledge.
Awesome.
Okay, let me share my screen then.
Yes. I'm gonna be... Yep, you can share it. All right, I see it. So the stage is all yours.
Great, thank you. Okay, then hi everyone. I'm really happy to be here today and talk about some nice things about Sitecore JSS and also Sitecore Forms and how to use them together. Let me introduce myself a bit. Just a second. You can probably just see the last one. Here. Okay. So I work for, I'm Peter Procházka. I work for Accenture for more than 12 years now, and solely working 10 years with Sitecore platform. As Vladimir mentioned, I'm a 6-time Sitecore technology MVP. I'm experienced ASP.NET, Sitecore, also SXA and JSS developer. I also did some customizations for Sitecore Commerce. So as you can hear, I'm more or less, or I was more or less hardcore ASP.NET Sitecore backend developer and architect. But for last 2-3 years, I have worked as a sort of full stack developer architect, switching between creating APIs, working in backend, and also working with React and Sitecore JSS. So without further intros, let's take a closer look what kind of agenda we have today. So I will talk about Sitecore Forms, Sitecore JSS, and also how these two things are working together. So let's start with Sitecore Forms. Basically, the whole Forms functionality for Sitecore was also there before. Since Sitecore 6, you remember the really nice module Web Forms for Marketeers. It was a separate module, It was deprecated in Sitecore 9.1. The last, let's say, version that was made for Sitecore was for 9.0 update 2. Sitecore Forms was a new kit in the town since Sitecore 9. It was part of the platform itself, so you didn't have to install anything, or you don't need to install anything because it's still part of the platform. And it was a completely rewritten module. As you can see on the table, what are some differences or what kind of functionality both of the modules had. At the beginning, as you can see, these two modules were not on pair, right? So out of the box, when you installed it, you don't need to, create save actions like send email or these kind of things. Basically, at the beginning, Sitecore Forms lacked a couple of save actions and also a couple of functionalities. But basically, the simplistic ones were there, right? Save data, redirect to page, and so forth. Only in latest versions of Sitecore 10, Sitecore Forms have really on-pair functionality to the web forms for marketeers at the end. The web forms for marketeers, as you know, and also from the past history, first they supported ASP.NET Web Forms, of course, because also Sitecore was supporting only those, and then it just went to MVC. The problem, what was realized at the beginning, was that Sitecore Forms was a completely new module, of course, and there was a problem, right? You had forms in Web Forms for Marketeers, but you couldn't use them with Sitecore Forms because it had completely different structure of items. It was working completely differently in his guts, right? So what Alessandro created was a really cool module that you could use to do the conversion, right? So converting the forms that were dedicated for web forms for marketeers and that were working in Sitecore Forms. Of course, it was not 100% converting everything because there were some nuances of the web form for marketeers and also for Sitecore Forms. But I think for the beginning, when you were switching between these, it was really cool. At least some addition that you could use to convert some forms. Then there was a really nice extension module created by Bart that was basically adding missing functionality, right? As I mentioned, for sending emails, file upload, reCAPTCHA was completely missing from the beginning, and hidden fields. Basically, lots of functionalities that were in this module were then added to Sitecore Forms itself out of the box. So we didn't have to either use this module at the end, or you could just reuse some functionality from it. Also, this module was really cool for us when we wanted to do extensions by ourselves. We could also see in the code how to do them properly because Bart really created nicely structure of this module, so it could be really nicely read, and basically it showed you how to do the customizations for Sitecore Forms. Okay, let's talk about Sitecore JSS now. As you probably know, Sitecore JSS it's SDK. I also have a webinar, you can find it on YouTube, with some differences between Sitecore SXA JSS and description, basically what are the differences between the frameworks and SDKs. So please take a look. But yeah, Sitecore JSS is SDK. It's a set of NPM packages that lets you implement Sitecore apps for JavaScript frameworks. Basically, it supports a couple of frameworks and also libraries that front-enders are using nowadays. Basically, it has different Sitecore. It's using different Sitecore APIs. It has packages for different frameworks and libraries, and it's also creating some starter apps, so you don't need to create everything from scratch, but it will create you some basic wiring at the beginning of the project. You have two programming styles that you can use in JSS. Is the code first or Sitecore first. If you use the code first, basically it will create the templates, or you can create the template renderings and content and routes in Visual Studio Code, and then you can just import to your JSS app. That's the code first. Sitecore first is that you are doing, or basically backend developers or Sitecore developers are doing the usual stuff as they were used to, right? Creating the templates, renderings, contents inside of Sitecore, and then you are building the components in Visual Studio Code. JSS has also 3 modes. It's the disconnected one, integrated, and connected. In disconnected, I think that's the most used mode for front-enders, because you don't need to have Sitecore installed anywhere at all, and you are just more or less coding against either some mocked up JSONs coming from layout service, or you are mocking the data in your Sitecore JSS project. Then you have the integrated mode, where you are basically connecting directly to some Sitecore instance. And then you have connected mode, which is some kind of a mixture of the disconnected and integrated. But the problem with those two last modes is that the integrated mode is supporting complete experience editor experience as you are used to. So you go to experience editor and you can change the field values as you are used to with Sitecore MVC or SXA or this kind of solutions. With the connected one, everything is working, but not the experience editor. The thing is that the connected one is supported by Sitecore, or basically Sitecore is saying that you should use the connected one for production code, and the integrated one should be used either in CM, or you should just use it for development purposes because of the performance or probably the performance issues. So just to let you know that there are some differences in the functionality. Basically, the tooling for the JSS, as a backend developer, you are used to use the Visual Studio or Rider from JetBrains, but more or less you don't need to use Visual Studio. You can use Visual Studio Code for JSS development, or you can use Notepad, Notepad++, whatever you like. But of course, with Visual Studio Code, you have a couple of nice plugins and extensions that you can use, like SLint, Prettier, and for basically for React, you have a couple of extensions. For Vue, you have a couple of extensions that can help you. So really, these are the nice things that Visual Studio Code can offer you, which you of course don't have with Notepad. And why would you take the hassle and use the Notepad if you have really nice IDE with a nice plugins that can help you. Basically, the linters are really cool stuff. I was not aware of those before when I was just developing the backend. The SLint is a really nice example of this. So this can parse the code and compare it against some set of rules, and they can check, the syntax errors, formatting. So it's really cool before creating or doing the commit or creating the pull request, or basically just pushing the code to repository. It will just more or less check the code, and it will help you. Creating the project is really simplistic. You have four commands basically. First, you just add the Sitecore CLI with npm install. Then you create your project. Then you start it. That's the command basically to create the project. And then to work with it, you just call the, you can also use the specific version of the JSS. As you can see, we have found out some really nice switch with the -b, and you can more or less point your JSS create command to specific release of Sitecore JSS, so you are not using the latest, because with this command JSS create, it will just use the latest version basically. So with this one, it will use the specific version that you will point out. During development, you usually use, or we were usually using two commands. First one is to deploy the app, including the content and dictionary, or deploying the items. So you were just pushing the items or the mock data that you created to your instance of Sitecore. It doesn't have any specific environment-specific configuration, so that was always a problem for us with JSS, that when we were pointing to different sites in our solution, JSS is not supporting it. So there were a couple of solutions, the Sitecore rule-based configuration, or creating some API for that to get the settings. We went this direction, so please take a look on my blog post for further details. And of course, we were also extending the layout service context object. So basically in the JSON, the front-enders received some extra information that are not by default or out of the box. So this is how we have pushed some specific environment-specific configuration towards front-enders, so they could use it, right? So they know that in which side they are, or context of which side they are, and so forth. So regarding the frameworks, I think the golden rule is that you should always use the one that is currently the major one for the front-enders, because it has usually the biggest audience. It has biggest number of people who are using it. So also Sitecore is going in that direction, right? So even though that Sitecore, for example, supports these four libraries or frameworks, right? React, Vue, Angular, and also the Next.js, which is the framework on top of React library. Basically, you can choose, I would say, either React or Vue.js, because those are the major front-end libraries or frameworks these days. You have also Astro, of course, but Sitecore is not supporting it out of the box, so you would need to create your own connector to it, let's say, right? Then you have also Next, which is a framework built on top of Vue, but also, again, you need to create your own connector. So the best bet is using Next.js, I would say, these days, because also if you see, or if you have seen the documentation for XM Cloud, Sitecore is also betting for Next.js. So that's probably the best which you can choose. But it's up to you, of course, at the end. Okay, so some learning resources. Of course, I have gathered some list of the learning resources that you can use. Practice is always the best learning resource. And there are some webinars that you can take a look. So feel free to take a look on them. But this webinar is about working or putting these two things together. So Sitecore Forms and also the JSS. So let's take a look on these. So field elements. It's really easy, basically, to work with fields in Sitecore Forms. If you are coming from Sitecore MVC, right? Because you have field definition, as you can see, and there is a view path. What is the view path? Basically, in your Sitecore instance, there is a views subfolder, form builder subfolder, and then underneath you have the field templates. So that's exactly the location where normally the field would be or would have the the backend code, right? As you can see. So this is where Sitecore Forms just gets the value or basically the model for the field, and it will render it right at the end. But of course, we are in Sitecore JSS, which is a kind of a different topic, right? So why it's completely ignored by Sitecore JSS? Why the view path is only basically the view path is only used by the form builder. It's not used by Sitecore JSS. It's because how the rendering is done with JSS, right? So basically, you access the page or the page with forms. Let's be concrete, right? So it's calling the layout service, right? It gets the data, also the form schema data. It renders the schema, and then when you hit the submit button, it's posting the form data. It's executing the submit actions on server, right? And it will give you back the API response, right? And it will render the form elements in your JSS app. The thing is that that's why basically the view is not used right anymore, like it was with MVC, but you need to do your own form element rendering because of this hassle with JSS, right, and how it's rendered. So what you need to do, you need to install, of course, the JSS Forms npm package. It's really simple with npm, so just running the npm install command to install the Sitecore JSS Forms. Yeah, it's a more or less package that implements some framework agnostic helpers to deal with the Sitecore Forms API. So it's, for example, serializing the forms to post. There is an anti-forgery token and these kind of nice things at the end. So how you have it then at the end in your location, in your solution, sorry. So basically, when you are structuring your code properly, you have for each component, let's say, implementation in your React or Vue or Next.js solution, right, on the front end side. So as you can see, you need to more or less implement the Sitecore JSS form component, so to say, or rendering. So as you can see, it needs to have index, right, and so forth. And then you need to have the fields, right? Let's take a look how this is wired up. So basically, you have the index TypeScript for the forms. What does it do? Basically, it creates for us. It was creating the section, right, and then the form itself. So it's a regular HTML element where we are or React element where we are pushing some props. So, for example, the fields that are coming from the layout service, right? Fields. And then you have the Sitecore API host, Sitecore API key, some field factories coming, and you are setting it on redirect. You need to do the implementation. There are a couple of articles on the internet with similar code, how to implement a form. So basically for JSS, you need to do two things. First, you need to do the implementation for forms. This is this one. And then each field needs to have its own implementation. So let's take a look at how this works. This is basically the field types file where you need to more or less specify the custom field IDs, right? So when you create your own custom ID in Sitecore, custom field, sorry, it has, of course, ID, and you need to somewhere connect it or map it in your Sitecore JSS solution. So this is the place. So usually what we have done, we were not using it directly, but we have created the field types file where we have mapped it to some common name, and we were casting it to field types, as you can see. Then we were creating the field factory file where we were first mapping the out-of-the-box fields, right? So as you can see, these are out of the box with Sitecore forms. So that's why we were first you need to map them, right? So for example, the single line text will be mapped as a text field, right, that we have created. So under the components folder, we have created a couple of form field implementations, text field, email field. So basically, everything that you would like to have as a form field, you need to also create an implementation in React or in Vue for JSS. Without that, you cannot. Sitecore JSS wouldn't know, or forms, Sitecore forms wouldn't know how to render that field, right, at the end. So this is basically the out-of-the-box ones. So we can use the field types from the npm package, as you can see, the Sitecore JSS Forms, right? But for the custom ones, you will use the field, you will use the file that we have created earlier with the field types, right? So as you can see here, custom field types dot first name, whatever. So here you are telling for the custom fields what is the implementation. It's really easy to reuse, as you can see. So you can have a couple of custom fields with the out-of-the-box ones, and you will use the same implementation. So you don't need to do all the time, different implementation for different fields. So you can reuse, for example, the text field, right? We have used it a couple of times, and so forth. Yeah. What are some crucial things is that the field elements basically it uses the forms service REST API. You can take a look on the documentation how it looks like. Basically, the simplistic thing is that when you call it, it's under the API /JSS /form builder, as you can see. So this is basically the API request that is coming from Sitecore forms towards Sitecore, and it will give nice JSON as a response, as you can see. So there are no errors, right? The form itself with the fields, with some form item ID, and you have some validation errors. So at the end, when you hit the submit button, this kind of request is made. So it's not like that, like with the Sitecore MVC, right? That the full post of the page was done. Here, when you click the submit button, you are effectively just calling some API on Sitecore side, and it will give you some response, right? Where there are some validation errors and so forth. So basically, the whole validation thing is really crucial here for the security. So Sitecore is not doing the front-end validation, or they are not relying on front-end validation, but they are also doing the back-end validation. So I think that from security point of view, it's really cool. Of course, you can implement your own validation on front-end side to help the end users or visitors of the page with some validation upfront, because nobody likes to hit the submit button and then you will see on the email field that you have specified incorrectly or this kind of stuff. That should be done by JavaScript, right, already. Of course, this kind of front-end validations can be overpassed, right, by some advanced users, let's say. That's why still you have the possibility to do the backend validation at the end, right? And then you can propagate those on your fields, right? So for example, if this comes, the field itself will be aware, and it will show that there is some error in reCAPTCHA or there is some issue with the state field or zip code, right, or these kind of things. So how this works, when the JSON comes from the REST API, as you can see, there is a fields array, and each field has a model, and it has the form type item ID. So this is the thing, how it's wired. So based on this, Sitecore Forms and JSS or your implementation will know what kind of field it needs to use, or what kind of implementation of the field needs to use, or what kind of field it needs to render at the end, right? So based on this, it will go to mappings, right? This one, and it will know that it needs to show the text field, right? Because this ID stands for first name, and it knows that it needs to show it as a text field, right? So this is basically the implementation. There is nothing else here. You cannot use it. Let's say there is no name of the field or something like that. It's only ID here, and Sitecore is using this kind of mapping at the end. So that's kind of a strange thing, but then on the other hand, it makes complete sense, I would say. And then, yeah, these are the form elements. So basically, we also created something like a base text field, and as you can see, so this is complete implementation on the JSS side. So this is basically the form, or this is the HTML that will be generated for that kind of form field, right? For example, in this case, it was some input, yeah, with and basically the errors. For errors, if you remember, maybe I can go back slightly. If we go to the index field that I showed you, this one. So this is the JSS form implementation, right? And as you can see, there is an error component, right? And there is also a field validation errors component. What does this do? Is the error component, it will show you each error, or there is a error grouping usually at the end of the form, right? This is basically the error component that can show all of the errors for all fields. But if you don't have this kind of implementation, you can also just pass it, right, as an empty error component. But for the field validation errors, you can create your own component, as this one. And then basically, you will just pass the information to that component here. So it will show nice, red or whatever text on the bottom of your field, what kind of errors that field has, right? So for example, if we go back, it will know based on this ID what kind of on which field this error is on, right? And it will use this value basically as a text or as a prop for this form validation errors here. So it will just show some text beneath the form field. Then we have checkbox field as a next example. So as you can see, again, it's an input, which is type of a text box. So here you are using really the core HTML, nothing new, nothing special. So yeah, that's the thing. So it's like React development as usual, right? You are just implementing the form field, and that's it. You can also use Formix or any other, React npm package or extension that you are used to for forms. It's not a problem. Okay, so this is basically how to work with Sitecore JSS. Let's move on with the model types. Basically, each form field can, as we discussed, the first property is not, let's say, something important for the JSS, because it's really only used in the form builder, right? So if you open the form builder when you are adding the fields to the form, then the view path is used, right? But only in this case. On the other side, the JSS implementation will be used. Then you have this model type, which you can use to extend what kind of data or what kind of model data you are passing with your field. So you can, by default, there are some out-of-the-box field definitions. You can find them in the experience forms.mvc assembly and in the models fields namespace. So basically here are all the models that are used for the out-of-the-box form fields. Please bear in mind the serializable attribute of the view model, right? Here that we had problems with that, and I will show you what kind of. So basically, I have also a blog post about how to create some custom sections from the form builder. So take a look. Regarding the demo, I don't have a demo, but I will show you what kind of customizations you can make. So basically, for the forms, the base 64 string is your best friend, I would say. We were sending the complex values in this base 64 string, and then we were decoding it on higher environments because we were using some strict rules on the infra level, and basically on the local machines everything was fine, but then on higher environments we had trouble because the app service thought that we are doing some SQL injection. So the base 64 strings were helping us because we were first encoding the model or the value from the field on the JSS side, and then we were decoding it in model on the backend side, and this is how it was working nicely for us. So at the end, we were bypassing the strict rules on the infra level. So how it was done? So basically, we were using the byte to this BTOA method from the window, and we were encoding the URI component, right? So basically, if you are just passing URL, it's causing trouble because you are using the slashes, the dots, and it thinks that you are doing some wrong stuff. So from JSS to custom service model on the backend side, this is how we were converting it back, or decoding it more or less using the byte 64 string. I was telling you that we had some trouble with serializable attribute. So take a look that when you check the serializable attribute is not inherited, right? So when you are when I was creating, for example, the reCAPTCHA view model by inheriting the string input view model, I was wondering why it was not working at all at the beginning. And then I realized that basically the serializable attribute is not inherited. Therefore, always when you are inheriting from the out-of-the-box view models from the Sitecore forms, you need to again decorate your class with the serializable attribute. So don't forget about that. Overall, I would say that the functionality with Sitecore forms and JSS was pretty nice. It was really a cool experience. Also, the front-end developers were really happy about using it. Of course, let's say creating the implementation for each form field was at the beginning a bit hassling because we were thinking like, okay, we are using the SDK, so basically there should be something out of the box, right? But in this case, it's I would say always a problem, right? That if there is some implementation by Sitecore, then it wouldn't probably fulfill our requirements, right? Because usually when you are, creating your own functionalities, or doing customizations, you are using some, custom CSS, this kind of stuff. You have some structure defined in your solution and so forth. So if Sitecore is creating some out-of-the-box implementation, it wouldn't suit your needs by default, right? So for maybe, I don't know, some demo purposes, it would be cool to have some implementation out of the box, right? But yeah, in this SDK, it is not. So you need to create your own implementation for even the out of the box fields. So that's the hassle at the beginning, I would say, but it was not a big problem at the end. And really, the front end developers were enjoying it, working with it. So at the end, it's like the form field. At the end, it's really like any other component that you have in your solution. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned already, there are some really nice JSS learning resources available on my blog, so you can take a look. Even though that it's already almost 4 years old, I think it still stands and it's up to date. You can always use Slack, Stack Exchange, of course, to ask some questions about Sitecore Forms and JSS. And there is also a documentation site, doc.sitecore.net, and so forth. And I would say for the future, as you probably saw somewhere, Sitecore already released new Sitecore forms for the XM Cloud. And again, they are starting with the same kind of functionality as it was before, that it's not on pair with the current Sitecore forms. So it still lacks some functionalities, but it's a first version. So I guess in a couple of weeks, there will be a second one supporting more form fields, supporting more functionalities. So I would say it's really cool that also Sitecore has some new headless approach also for forms. I guess that again, it wouldn't be that easy to migrate from Sitecore Forms to this new XM Cloud offering. So maybe there will be some module again, similarly to the one that I showed you before. But yeah, who knows? It's then up to you. There are also some other solutions for forms, but as I mentioned, it was kind of cool experience, and it was really great that we could more or less have in one solution everything, right? Implementation for the usual components or the renderings that we are creating, plus also the form elements that we had on on forms. And yeah, as always, you can find me on my blog, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or also on Mastodon. And if you are interested in what I'm currently reading, then you can also go to Goodreads. So yeah, thank you. So if you have any questions, then I'm happy to answer them.
Right. Thank you very much, Peter. Yeah, this was very interesting. Sitecore Forms and Sitecore JSS. I had one question that I was kind of googling real quick. I wanted to know, like, from which Sitecore version are you able to like install Sitecore JSS?
You mean Sitecore JSS plus Forms or
No, just Sitecore JSS.
Sitecore JSS? I think Sitecore 9
Sitecore
something.
9.
I can't remember
Right.
exactly.
There is a table I found. It says like from Sitecore 9.2. It has like
Mhm.
this Sitecore JavaScript services. It was called.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah. Basically, nowadays it's called Sitecore Headless
Aha,
Services,
exactly.
but before it was called JavaScript Services. So yeah,
JavaScript
they did
services.
the rebranding because more or less it was not fitting the JavaScript anymore because they were more or less pushing also with ASP.NET Core, right? So the headless services basically can be used either by JavaScript, by front-enders, or by ASP.NET Core if you are going that direction.
Right.
But I don't know how many people are using this with ASP.NET Core. So
Yeah, yeah, that too. I think not that much. I remember I used once in one project the web forms for marketers. It was a long time ago, and
Yeah, me too. And
yeah,
it was strange situation. I would say it's
yes,
like it
uh,
was not that nice to use, I would
hmm
say, but it was working, right? They
yeah,
wanted to do some kind of a forms, kind of functionality similarly to what you were doing with the renderings and components, right? So
yeah,
it made sense, but it was a bit pain in the ass, I would say,
kind of yes,
with the HTML that it was generating, because it was not for backend developers, but I would say more for front end developers, because
yeah,
there were always saying that the HTML that module is generating is like really not well structured. Let's put it this way.
yeah, yeah. I remember also that when the client wanted to upgrade the Sitecore version, we had to struggle a little bit in that sense because we had to go from 8.2 to 9.3, I think. And yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge to migrate, but everything went well at the end. So it's cool. Um, Let me see if we have questions from our audience.
Okay.
Let's see if there are some other questions. Yeah. In the meantime, so what would be the latest like way or the most modern way to do a Sitecore form nowadays? Let's say in Sitecore or XM Cloud.
I would say with the new offering, it makes sense to maybe try this out, right? But as I mentioned, it doesn't have still the functionality that you have now with Sitecore Forms for the XM or XP solutions, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I would say you have a couple of other options, right? Like there are many solutions that you just generate some code that you just embed in your page, right? And you have the form inside of the page. So that's also what we were using before, because marketers are used to use lots of tools, right, by their own, and they usually tend to go, with their preferred way, right?
Yeah.
Not the one that Sitecore supports or somebody else. So I think that it's a question of what also the clients are what are the needs by the clients, what are the needs by the marketers, by the editors itself, right? And it's also up to, I would say, market or site specific, because also I was on solution where we had, editors in US, editors in Europe, in a couple of countries, also in Asia, and basically each region wanted to use different things, right? So we
Yeah.
were doing a connection to Salesforce for US, some connection to Dynamics on Europe side. So I would say it depends. I would say it's not like a gold gold hammer, like solution
Hmm.
that you are using everywhere. I would say it's up to also like requirements, because you can you can have just a requirement to have a simple form. So you just create something in Google.
Yeah.
They also have a solution for forms, kind of, right? So you just embed some JavaScript or some code in your page, and that would do it, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It
Exactly.
depends.
All right. Good. Yeah. Well, I think we don't have any questions from our audience, but I think it was a great session. Thank you again, Peter, for coming up this late for you. We're really thankful.
No problem.
And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for the invitation, and yeah, see you.
Thank you very much. All right. See you, everyone. Bye. See you in the
Bye
next one.
bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
They're so nice, that boys. Young Indo shouty. Emotional Boys 2001. Emotional shouty seen this bitch. Machiavelli. Bitches come and go, bruh. But you know I stay. Bitches come and go, bruh. But you know I stay. Get my balls licked by a so we that Chanel. looking like cocaine addict. Razor blade to your head, conflict. I'ma contradict this shit. Peeing on old people's houses is an inflict. 2003 shit, this ain't no splitting bill shit. I'ma peel banana skits while listening